with the Docker concepts, container concepts, and all that, so we can move through those pretty quickly, right? Yes? Perfect. So let me just do a quick walkthrough of the platform so that we have a level setting, and then from that point in time, we can go ahead and do whatever you want to do, right? So I'm just going to sit because it's easier to do the demos when you're sitting. Okay, so let me just go to the window here. Maybe this is slides on that one. Is that clear enough at the back? Yeah. Right. So one of the first things we need to do if you want to look at the cloud platform is basically go ahead and create a project, right? So I'll just go ahead and get into the Google Cloud here, if this will work. So the story begins at cloud.google.com, right? So you can go to cloud.google.com. I'm hoping the network is not going to be up on me. Yeah, we did. Right? And later on, if you want to do the stuff yourselves, you can just hit the Try Now button and that will launch a project for you and so on. But I'll just go to the Cloud Console here. And the Cloud Console is where all of my projects are basically listed. So the way we do things in the Google Cloud Platform is to have this abstraction called a project into which you put all these different resources you consume. And you can segregate your work into different projects and the like. And I might have one here, there you go. So I have one called the Type A demo. So this is a project that I have created, right? And everything that I'm doing from the web console here, you can do from the command line. You can do it over API as well, right? So it's all basically RESTful APIs. So inside that project, as you can see, there is all these different tabs over here, right? So again, it's the compute, the storage, and the big data, exactly the way I talked to you about before. We also have some additional ones like billing, etc. You have APIs and authorization. So I'm just going to walk you through all of the tabs quickly so that we can get going. So under the overview tab here, I have basically something called permissions. I can go and add other members into my project, right? So I can add a new member and I can say whether the member is an owner, whether they can edit, whether they can view stuff, etc. So what that basically means is to send them a link, and if they accept that link, they will be able to work with you and collaborate with you on your project. And this is extremely useful, particularly when given today's geographically distributed teams. I have customers whose architects are sitting in Singapore, but the core developers are in Vietnam and China, etc. And they can all collaborate on one single project this way. And the next bit that's interesting is basically the API side of things. So inside here, I have every single Google API that's available there, right? And if I wanted to use a particular API inside my product, I just need to go ahead and just flick it on and turn it on. So every single API that Google puts out there is available here for you to go and play with, right? In this particular case, I've just basically used the BigQuery, the Cloud Data Store, the Cloud Deployment Manager, monitoring, PubSub, a couple of the APIs that I want to use, and so on. So the advantage here is that if you're building products which are using the rest of the Google APIs, this is a very significant use because all of these APIs are basically co-located and the egress to these APIs are effectively free, and they are low latency and high performance because they're all running on Google's platform. So that's an interesting thing to do. So let's go here quickly into compute, right? So we also have monitoring and we have source code. Monitoring basically allows you to create some dashboards and alerts. We have basically acquired Stackdriver. I don't know how many of you know Stackdriver as a company. Stackdriver is basically a cloud monitoring tool which has an intelligent agent that you can put on all of your nodes, and it has very smart monitoring about the usage of that particular virtual machine. This could be CPU memory, network, etc. Also, they have additional smarts around different kinds of applications. So if you're running Redis, you're running MySQL, the agent is intelligent enough to do some smart monitoring on those as well. and we're basically integrating Stackdriver into our system as well. So if you're doing purely on platform as a service, we also have the capability of doing push to deploy straight into App Engine. Every Google project comes with its own Git repository, so you can use Git to manage your code. We also like GitHub a lot, so you can actually link to GitHub as well if you like. But those are the brief ones. Maybe not quite that interesting for today's talk, but just thought I'd cover them anyways. So the number one thing we want to do is now spin up virtual machines into which we will materialize our container, right? So for us to be able to do things like that, we first need to create a VM into which we can deploy a Docker image and so on, right? So the first concept we need to understand is how does one create a virtual machine on the Google Cloud? So you choose the compute engine over there, click on virtual machines, VM instances, and I got a bunch of different instances here. Some of them have spun up for demos later on, right? I have one running Mongo over here somewhere. There you go, I got a Mongo instance as well. But what you want to do is to click on this button which says New Instance, right? And then we can give it an instance and name. And every instance you can stick some metadata to it, etc. Now I can choose where this instance spins up. So that's our zone, right? So I can choose whether it's in Asia, Europe, or US, right? So these are the regions that we have right now. Notice very interestingly, it says no maintenance windows around here, right? So Google does something that very few cloud vendors can do, which is called live migration. In other words, if at any point in time we need to do some maintenance work on our own data centers, and your machine was going to be affected, etc., most of the cloud vendors would send you something called a restart notice, where you have to go off and run off and migrate that server to another server. And if it's a database, you're really panicking, right? And so effectively, a maintenance by the cloud vendor is like a DR run for you, right? At Google, we basically do stuff like live migration. So as the VM is running, we'll just migrate it to another machine, completely transparent to you. And we recommend you run that for stateful servers as well. And that's stuff which is Google has to do internally for itself. You know, like I said, Gmail doesn't have a downtime. So you can't have those kind of things. So our underlying infrastructure actually supports migrating virtual machines while they're running from one to another. So I can choose, maybe let's choose Asia East. By the way, Asia East 1 is Taiwan, okay, in case you're wondering. So I can choose different kinds of virtual machine configurations here. So I have a micro, a G1 small, a high CPU, high mem, a standard mem, etc. Basically a standard instance is for every core, you get 3.75 GB of memory, right? In high mem, you get twice that, right? And for high CPU, you get more compute relative to memory. So depending on your use case, you use whichever instance. Let's just go ahead and choose high mem instance over there. And there's a bunch of different ways I can create that boot image. I'll just say, create a boot image from, boot this from image. And I can use whichever one I want. Let's say I choose CentOS for this one, and etc. And then I have different disk options. I can either do an SSD persistent disk or a standard persistent disk. I'll just leave it as a standard persistent disk over there. And I can go ahead and click on create. So when I click on create, effectively what's happening now is the infrastructure is being provisioned, and that machine is being brought up. And once that machine is being brought up, I have immediate access, root access to that machine, and I can put anything I want in there, right? So in this case, it's CentOS machine. So once the machine is being booted up and run and ready to go, I could just do yum install and install whatever else I want in there. So where are we? Instance number 4, right? And interestingly enough, I can SSH straight to that machine from the web console if I so desire. So all I have to do is click on that SSH button, and it'll automatically pop up SSH window for me. So it's just going to transfer SSH keys to that virtual machine, and I hope the network connection is good over here. Yeah, there you go. And then you establish connection It happens. This is what happens when you do live demos. Don't worry about it. So let's hit that SSH button one more time. And hopefully it's second time I'm lucky. There you go. Like, I think that deserves an applause. No, okay. So I have root access to that machine now. Let me just make this a little bigger so that everybody else can see. So then I can just do, I mean, basically I'm a root on that machine and I can do sudo yum install whatever I want. Alright, so if I do sudo yum update, that will go ahead and update my yum repository, and then I can install anything I want in there. Now, you don't have to do this all manually like this. We also support something that's called a startup script. So you can fire, when you're firing up the instance, basically you can provide it with a startup script, and then that script will fundamentally just go off and do whatever activities you want, and that part of that could be maybe grabbing repositories from somewhere and installing it in here and so on, right? So while that's going on, I don't think I want to do this anymore, just to demonstrate. So let's just get that out of the way. Any questions on this so far? I'll leave this page. So that's all from the console, right? Now everything I can do from the web console, I can also do from the command line. Now this is going to be a bit of a dance for me with one hand here, but let's give it a try. Okay, so, right. So we have a toolkit that's called G-Cloud. And if you're, how many of you are Mac users and how many are PC users? Mac? All right. Mac users, it's a one line for you to install it. For PC users, we have a setup.exe, so you just download the setup.exe and go ahead and do it. And for Mac, you just do a wget and a curl and a pipe to a bash, and then install automatically. Right? So once that's been installed, let's do G-Cloud components. So I can do a double tap and it will show me what all I have. So that's autocomplete as well. So if I do components list, it's just basically showing all of the components that I have in here.